Huge blockbuster deal going down a couple hours ago. Rudy Gobert traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. The three-time Defensive Player of the Year for Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Walker Kessler, Jared Vanderbilt, Leonardo Bamaro, and 4 first-round picks. So what a haul the Utah Jazz got in this deal here. And just imagine what the Nets could get for Kevin Durant once that deal happens in the next few days here, you would think. So Rudy Gobert last season with Utah, another great season for him, 15.6 points a game, 14.7 rebounds, 1.1 assists, 2.1 blocks a game, and 71% from the field. So Gobert, you know what you're going to get from him, 15 and 12, 15 and 14, 2 blocks a game, and a great field goal percentage where him and Donovan Mitchell obviously just didn't see eye to eye and had to break up here. And I could also see the Jazz trading Mitchell. I don't know if Mitchell is going to want to go through a rebuild. But anyway, in terms of fantasy basketball, Gobert, his score might go down a little bit because this is some starting lineup now over there for the Minnesota Timberwolves here. They got D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, who was amazing last season, Kyle Anderson, Karl Anthony Towns, who just signed that monster extension, and now Rudy Gobert. That's one of the best starting fives in all of basketball, in my opinion here. So in terms of fantasy basketball, Gobert, he's still a guy I would probably target at the back end of the second, early third round here because he's going to get a lot of rebounds. He's still going to block the shots. His points might take a little bit of a hit here, maybe 12, 13 points a game, but they don't need him to score with that firepower on that offense. They need him to play good defense and rebound the basketball, and that's what he's going to do. His field goal percentage will always be high with putbacks and dunks and layups and stuff of that sort. And they're going for it, the Minnesota Timberwolves. And it makes sense. You re-sign Towns to this big contract. And what are you going to do? Just wait for draft picks to develop and play? I know they gave up a huge haul for him. I don't think he was worth 4 first-round picks for a guy who's limited offensively. But what he brings on the defensive side of things is definitely second to none at the center position. So Rudy Gobert, after signing that contract, goes to the Jazz. And he's a guy, his fantasy value pretty much be the same late second, early third now to the Jazz side of things, what they're getting in terms of fantasy basketball type of plays here. Patrick Beverley, he's bounced around now over the couple seasons. He went to the Clippers, Timberwolves, and now going here to the Jazz. And who knows if he's even going to be on this Jazz team, to be honest. If they're looking to get younger and go with younger guys, I could see them buy him out and him go to a contender. So last season for Beverley, he was a beast and a pit bull with this Minnesota Timberwolves team to help him get to the playoffs. 9.2 points a game, 4.1 rebounds, 4.6 assists, 1.2 steals a game, 1.4 threes a game, but an awful 40% from the field. This guy, he was playing great last season, and we know what he's good for, defense and just toughness, and a lot of barking as well here from Beverley. So in terms of fantasy basketball, no matter where he lands, I think his value stays the same anyway. He'll probably be a guy you target in the last couple rounds of your fantasy drafts here, but I just don't see him sticking with the Utah Jazz. And even if he does, Mitchell and Conley have that backcourt, obviously, on lockdown at point guard and shooting guard of the two guys they're going to start, and Beverley would just be a guy coming off the bench. But like I mentioned, wherever he lands, if he stays in Utah or goes somewhere else, he's just going to stay the same. The next guy, Malik Beasley, who's been a good scorer over the last few seasons here for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And last season here, 12.1 points a game, 2.9 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 3 threes a game, and 39% from the field. So he's a guy that just likes putting it up and shooting a lot of 3 balls here is Beasley. And for him to come off the bench in Utah, if they stay the same, but if they do trade Mitchell, then he's going to step right into the starting lineup is Beasley. So he's a guy as well, probably 10th to the 12th round range. I would take a flyer on him because he's going to get more opportunity, more shot attempts over here in Utah, obviously, since he was one of the main pieces besides the draft picks in this deal. So right here, Beasley will help in three-point shooting. He could drive to the hoop, but that's about it pretty much. He's a two-dimensional player for fantasy basketball. Will help in threes and scoring the basketball, but every other category, he don't bring much to the game here. But he's a guy that could go off any night and score 30 points here is Beasley. So I like the landing spot, and especially if they trade Mitchell or Mike Conley, his value will go up even more. And Jared Vanderbilt, the third notable player in this deal here, Vanderbilt last season, he had some fantasy value for most of the season. 6.9 points a game. He's a good rebounder, 8.5 rebounds a game, 1.3 assists, 1.3 steals a game, and 58% from the field, qualifying at power forward and center. So now with Gobert out of town, obviously, Vanderbilt's going to step in and get some minutes, no doubt about it. I could see him playing 20, 25 minutes a game off the bench here, or possibly starting, depending what other moves this Jazz team might make. Because there's rumors they're interested in DeAndre Ayton, and it looks like Ayton's not going to go back, obviously, as well to this Phoenix Suns, especially if they're going to try to make a blockbuster deal for Kevin Durant, who's on their short list of teams. So Vanderbilt, he's a guy probably late round flyer, or just a guy to keep an eye on for fantasy basketball towards the end of the draft, or once the waiver wire hits after the season starts. But we got to see what other trades go down for me to say that Vanderbilt will be a guy that you could pick in your fantasy draft and be confident. But he's definitely going to be a good role player at minimum for this Jazz team. And the future is pretty bright here for Vanderbilt. Good rebounder, good instincts, good field goal percentage. And I think he fits pretty well in Utah here. And he's going to get an opportunity when no one really blocking him is Vanderbilt. And then the other two guys are obviously draft picks that they just picked and unknown. And we'll see if they're going to crack the rotation. But I think the Jazz, there's more moving parts. Mitchell, I could see him requesting a trade and wanting to go to the New York Knicks or the Miami Heat. So we got to stay tuned on that. So what a blockbuster deal. Gobert to the Minnesota Timberwolves for 4 players and 4 draft picks in a blockbuster deal. And we'll see if this Timberwolves team can take the next step after last season with a big improvement, making the playoffs, entering the 2022-23 NBA and fantasy basketball season.